Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Welcome, one and all. My name is Desiree Duffy, and it is time for the Books That Make You show. And today we're talking about books that make you accept the fact that we are not always fine, even if we say we are, and especially when we are teenagers and young adults. Now, there are so many expectations that seem thrust on us, especially for teens and young adults. We are expected to just kind of roll with whatever life throws at us. And you often hear people say they are fine. I mean, if somebody says, "Hey, how's it going?" What do you say back? You say, "Oh, I'm fine." Well, what happens when we're not always fine? Is that okay? I mean, sometimes it's okay to simply not be fine. And today's guest is someone who has worked with young people and is so passionate about letting them know that their feelings are normal, and that she made her debut novel titled Fine that theme. AmyLea Murphy. She enjoys writing about life-changing moments that unearth the resilient beauty of the human spirit in the hopes that it empowers her readers to embrace life in all of its messiness. Hello, AmyLea. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, there's a lot that we can dig into with your very beautiful debut novel, Fine. Congratulations on this, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Let's start with that big message, because I feel like there's a lot to unpack there. What do you want to say to young women, teenagers, young adults about the message of this book?
I think first and foremost, the message I would like to spread is that it's okay not to be okay. And I think that's been heard a lot lately, and for good reason, because all of us grow up thinking that at some point things will make sense, that there's all these answers out there. And, when we reach this magical age of maturity, we'll just be able to handle everything beautifully. And it's just not true. Life is, filled with ups and downs and unforeseen obstacles. And, all of us are just growing and expanding and changing and trying to become the truest, best version of ourselves. And I think especially when we're young, we don't hear enough about how difficult life is, and that it's okay, that we can, handle these challenges like this pandemic and like, all the other things that come our way unexpectedly, because we have so much inside of us that we are so capable, just truly capable of handling, all of the ups and downs of life. Mm-hmm. So I think that's pretty much what I would say as a right out the gate, that we can handle this, and it's okay that life is messy, and it's okay not to be okay.
Now, you brought up the pandemic because, yes, you wrote this book pre-pandemic and pre the world just going a little bit crazy. So it feels like that's just amplifying everything right now. And I want to get into that. But you said that word messiness. Can you tell us about that? When you say embrace life in all of its messiness, what do you mean by that?
I guess I just mean that, things happen in life. I was talking to my daughter who's 13 now, and, I went through a battle with cancer. And when she was, at the age of just becoming a preteen, she was reading all these books and listening to all these, stories that had someone's parent dying of cancer. Mm-hmm. And it was the worst thing that she could possibly think that could ever happen to our family. And then it happened. And it was just so heartbreaking. And I get cheered up just thinking about it. But what I thought was so beautiful about our experience of going through that battle was that she saw that even the worst possible catastrophe that could happen, and how messy that was, and how scary, and how much it shook our entire world of what was going to happen next, and how would tomorrow look. She was able to walk through it and embrace that journey, without fearing it so much. And I think that's the kind of messiness I'm talking about. And it can be as big as cancer. It can be as big as this pandemic. But it can also be as small as, and I say small, but of course that's a relative term, because what I think is small is not the same what someone else thinks is small. and how we feel it is always a lot bigger. But it could be as small as, just having a bad day, or, things not working out, or your grades going down, or not getting into the college you wanted to, or having your first heartbreak. I mean, there's so much messiness in life, and parents get divorced, people lose their jobs, they're furloughed because of the pandemic. I mean, there's just so many things that we want to say are bad, but I would argue they're just messy. They're just part of this, beautiful experience of life that has these highs, but it also has the lows. And we don't need to be so terrified of the lows, because they're just part of the experience. And they kind of, give you a little better appreciation of the highs, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right, because there's a certain expectation, especially teens and young adults, that you're supposed to do things in a certain way. And if it doesn't work out the right way, then oh my God, right? You are supposed to study and get good grades and go to the best college, and you are supposed to go to the prom. You are supposed to be a star of the basketball team. You have all of these expectations, and it just doesn't always work out that way.
Exactly. And if it doesn't, it is not the end of the world. And that's not the end of your dreams. It's not the end of all the joy and happiness that is waiting for you. And I think that's the danger, is that we lose sight that, of the future having so much good waiting for us, because all we can see in the moment is the bad. And that's what I mean, like, about embracing that this is a moment that is going to pass. It's going to be difficult, but I can handle it. I can withstand it and bend like the, branches of a tree, and then it's going to pass. And better things are waiting for me if I just hang on and realize my inner strength and just keep going.
Now, you said something that is very true in the world of literature, in the world of children's books and young adult fiction. A lot of times there's almost this rule, right, where you need to get rid of at least one of the parents. This young person on this journey has to be an orphan, or be a product of divorce, or something devastating has to go on with the parents. And so what you're saying about your daughter reading about, probably the heroes in her books, having a parent go through cancer, that's got to be scary too. The fact that in literature, and the very thing that we encourage our kids to read, that we're kind of setting them up to be really afraid if something like that happens.
Exactly. And I think I personally think a little too overused, as one of those challenges, because we all go through challenges in life, and reading, for me, I love reading books where these characters are going through similar challenges, and they may not be the exact ones that I've been through, but I can relate, right? Because we're all human. We're all going through the same things in different ways. And, I love relating to characters like that and feeling like they're my best friends and being like, oh, she can do it. I can do it. And I feel like when the books do that, and the, heroine, handles it and gets through it, it's so just invigorating and beautiful. But sometimes I tell you, does it have to always be that one? Could it be something different? Could we get more creative on the challenge and the obstacle that comes in? Because you're right, it creates a lot of fear. And I experienced that firsthand. I mean, just watching my daughter crumble when she said, all the books, Mom, all the books. You're not going to make it. And I'm like, what? Where is this coming from? And so we, it's a responsibility, I think, too, the things we put out into the world. I mean, I'm a big advocate that, when you use your voice, when you use your words and you put these things out there, they're life changing. They can change someone's life for the better and sometimes for the worse. So you have to choose your words carefully, and your characters and their obstacles.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So then let's talk about your book, In Fine, and how you infuse so much of that into this book. You want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes. Okay. So this is the story of two sisters. It's about Anna Williams, who mysteriously disappeared when she was only 18 years old. And basically the book picks up 6 years later when her younger sister, Katie, is kind of at the point in her life where she's graduating high school, and she's kind of lost. She doesn't know what she's doing in life. She doesn't know what she's going to do. And she's just really fixated on her sister. Like, what happened? And how could this have happened in the first place? Like, what happened to my sister? And so she goes into the police file and starts investigating and trying to understand what was going on in her sister's life before she disappeared. So it's really about Katie's search for answers, not only to what was going on with her sister, but in a way, it's also a search for, an understanding of how this event impacted her and how her life has unfolded since then. So it's sort of a parallel journey for both sisters, understanding what happened to Anna and also what's happening with Katie.
Yeah, exactly. And I just must say, I'm going to hold this up because when you talk about it has police reports in it. That's one of the beautiful things about this book. I don't know if the camera is quite doing it justice there, but the way it's designed, the interior design of the book is absolutely beautiful. Congratulations on that. This really is a very unique reading experience. There you can see the missing poster in there. So as you're reading it, you feel like you're reading the real documents, police reports and press releases and everything. How did you come up with that idea? Why did you decide to write it like that?
I loved the idea of being with Katie as she went through this experience. And it's a snapshot of this moment in time for her. And I felt like it was so just it's so impactful to look at some of these records, and having been a lawyer and looking through cold files and the papers that sum up a person's life or, their future sometimes. It's always remarkable to me to actually feel what that is like, because when you put a person on paper in a book, it comes to life more, and the imagery and all those beautiful things come along with it. But sometimes we don't get that in life. When it's a legal document or a police file, it's cold, right? And I thought being able to mix those mediums would be so just kind of like an invitation to be a part of the experience with Katie. So you could feel how she was feeling, discovering these things and what it looked like and how it came off the page to her as well as you. So, I love the idea of just playing with the different graphics and just, I don't know, making it a more fun experience. So it just sort of evolved that way. I started with the missing persons file or poster, and then it just kind of, I was like, and then we could do this. And, and I had some of my old journals from when I was a kid, and I had been reading through them as part of the inspiration. And it was funny because I looked at them and I thought, well, now that's real. That's, looking at an old diary and how you write and when you doodle and it just makes it feel so much more authentic to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, bravo, because you, it's beautiful. You did a magnificent job of pulling that off. And you're right, too. Reading this book, you have her anxiety, her fear, her frustration. She's angry. She quits her job. She's mad at her mom. She's just angry. And she's just like, oh, I'm gonna go, look into this. And then you have this just the facts, ma'am, type of reporting on what happened. And that juxtaposition between the two is really masterfully done.
Oh, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Yeah, now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that was so much fun writing, because I think about all the, things we experience every day and how different they look from different perspectives. And it's just amazing to me, the feeling, the emotion and the truth that comes from various angles, because it presents a different story depending on which side you're looking from. And I love that about the way Fine kind of unfolds, that, if you're looking through the eyes of Katie or you're looking through the eyes of her mom, you're going to see two different things. And I love that kind of presents itself very just openly. So the reader has an opportunity to feel both sides of it in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too, as somebody reading it, as somebody just like, me, I was a daughter once and I was a mom. Now I'm a grandmother, but you totally can empathize with both. And then you can just kind of see, oh yeah, I could have seen myself as a teenager saying that and doing that. And then you empathize with the motherly aspect of it too. And that just kind of beautifully encapsulates what it means to be a whole person or a whole woman, right?
Right. Exactly. And a whole imperfect woman. I think we're all beautifully imperfect. And it's so tempting to make characters that are just horrifically evil and awful, or just perfect and amazing. And I think that the truth lies somewhere in between those for most of us.
Yeah, it definitely does. So now we teased it a little bit in the beginning because again, when you wrote this book, you weren't thinking of pandemics and COVID and people under lockdown and, people having protests and everything that just seems to going on in our society right now. So how do you feel that teens and young adults now, today, should be handling everything that's going on? And just as an example, I kind of heard somebody dismissively saying, "Oh, so what if she misses that dance? It's not the end of the world." And I thought of you because it's like, no, to that teenager who can't go to, that first school dance of the year, that's
Yeah.
everything, isn't it?
Everything. It is everything. And it's funny to me that I think we so quickly forget our teenage years and we kind of assume the personality and the experience that we have as adults that we had that when we were teenagers. And it's funny that, those years when you're becoming who you really are so pivotal. I mean, it's your first everything, your first dance, your first, relationship, your first job, they're all firsts and they're beautiful and they're amazing and they shape who you eventually become. Because we all look back and remember those first. Oh, I remember where I was when that happened. I remember the first boy I ever kissed and where we were and what I was wearing, And it's funny because during this whole pandemic, I've heard the same thing so often. And so many people say, teenagers and young people are the least impacted by the virus. And I keep thinking they're so impacted because they are developing and becoming adults in a time where things are insane and where they've been stripped of all of their normal. They don't have their friends and their communities the way they have in the past. And that's like a key to anyone's development during those years. So they're going to be impacted in so many ways. And I think that, as healthy adults, whether it's a parent or a teacher or neighbor, I think it's so important for us to just validate their experiences because I think all of us just want to be seen and heard and understood. And that goes back to when you were first, a teenager. And, I think if we were able to validate these experiences for them and say, yeah, that is a terrible loss. That is too bad. But then at the same time, after we listen, be able to remind them that this will pass and they will move on to bigger and better things and things will, move forward for them. That this isn't the end. This isn't, they don't have to fall apart. You just got to hold the course and we'll keep moving forward and things will get better. And more importantly, for teenagers, you have the opportunity to make it better. I think that's so often overlooked, and I think part of the beauty of Katie is her resiliency in saying, look, I am mad and I am completely out of control. But you know what? She kind of goes through this beautiful metamorphosis where, she's able to realize her own inner strength and her own resiliency and that she too can handle what life has given her. So I don't know. This is a hot topic for me, as you can tell. I could probably talk about this all day. But I think it's so important to just validate, teenagers and young people and what they're feeling and honor that this is a difficult thing for them, even though maybe 10, 20, 30 years from now, we might see it differently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't imagine, again, just to underscore that, if you told me I wasn't going to that first dance, because I remember that first dance. I remember who asked me. I remember the phone call. I remember my best friend telling me I could not wear those shoes because they made my feet look big, and standing in the closet for hours and then going over to my best friend's house and going through her closet because we would share clothes. So I remember that vividly, but I can't remember where I put my reading glasses 20 minutes ago. So
right. These are the things that shape you, right? The books that make you and the experiences that make you, It's true. It's true. And even going to college, it's so heartbreaking. It was such an exciting time to finally have that step of independence and, all those long nights in the dorm room talking to your new friends and to not have that, even though you've been working so hard for all those years to get the grades, to get into that college and then to have it online. It's like, that wasn't part of the deal. That's not what I've been working for. It's heartbreaking. And I think, acknowledging that it's heartbreaking is the first step, because that's what I would want. I'd be like, yeah, is hard. Just it is.
Right, right. Well, we are raised with a sense of fairness too. If you do these things, you will get rewarded. And now we're saying you've done all those things and it's still too bad. So I think that's going to just create resentment and frustration too. Now, one of the things that I love about the book and the cover and everything is the dragonfly and the dragonfly symbol that is within the story. Do you want to talk about the dragonfly a little bit?
I just love the dragonfly as this beautiful symbol of transformation and just this, it's such an iridescent, light-filled symbol. And I think it kind of flies its way through the book as this encouraging kind of beacon that this is where we're heading. We're heading towards the light. You know, this is the transformation you're about to go through. This is the journey we're on. And I love that imagery. I love the way it sort of has this hope and strength to it. And it's funny, I when I was deciding on it, I didn't know, which I'm sure everybody else does, but I didn't know that dragonflies spend almost all of their life underwater and they only come out with their wings for a little while. So, you know, if you think about, like, I've always heard emotions referenced as, you know, water. They're very watery emotions, you know, your tears and everything. And I thought, isn't that the truth sometimes? We feel like we're drowning in our emotions and we feel like we're just underwater. And then if you just hold on, you know, maybe you're just growing those beautiful wings. And maybe, you know, you're just waiting for that moment where you're just going to rise up out of the water and dance in the wind with these beautiful, colorful wings. So I love dragonflies. And I thought it was a perfect symbol for Anna and Katie.
Oh, I love it. I love it too. I love dragonflies as well and the colors and everything. And you're right. The dragonfly just kind of takes you through the chapters and you're just going along for that journey with the dragonfly. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences reading growing up? Who did you read? Who inspired you? Who do you feel is somebody that led you to eventually write this book?
So I started with the Babysitters Club, along with, you know, probably a billion other girls. And then I got really into classics. I loved Little Women. It's one of my favorite books of all time. But what's really funny is the reason I always wanted to be a writer is because of Anne Frank. I know, isn't that crazy? And I was so mesmerized by the idea that this girl was writing about her life in such an authentic way during these terrible, terrible times. But she never lost sight of, like, the beauty of life and the silliness and the innocence. And for some reason, you know, even as I got older, she just always just came back to me. She's always inspired me. And I thought, man, who knew that, you know, this young girl writing about her everyday life, which, you know, who cares about, you know, the life of a 13-year-old girl, but she has impacted the world with her authenticity and her just being a genuine person. And I don't know. I think Anne Frank is probably the single author that has really actually pushed me all the way to be a writer now, even though I've read a million beautiful, beautiful books. Yeah, but it is a funny one. It's not one, you know, you'd expect me to say, but it's true. Anne Frank inspires me.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's very true too, because she was falling in love. She had a crush on Peter, I think his name was, the boy. Yeah. I remembered. Wow.
right?
And at the same time, she's up in this cubby hole, hiding from the Nazis, facing, you know, what could be death if she, you know, accidentally steps too hard on the floor. But you're right. Her thoughts, her young woman thoughts are of love and does he like me? And she's analyzing social situations. So she's being a teenager. And I think that juxtaposition is definitely, you know, one of my favorite sayings ever, quotes ever, is when she said, despite everything, I still believe people are really good at heart. And I think that's the core of it, doesn't it? Just grab you right there.
It really does. And for such a beautiful truth to be spoken by someone in that situation at that age, I just think, you know, we have no idea what we're capable of if we would just unleash it into the world. I mean, that's what she did. She just unleashed her spirit into what she wrote, and including the ugly stuff. I mean, I love that she had this little tiff with the, Peter's mom and how annoying she was about the potatoes. And she had to do all the studies with her dad. And it's so mundane and ordinary. And it's like that book has everything of life, right? Like drastic, terrible, bad things. And yet the innocent, fun, just parts of life. And then the mundane, the everyday, we gotta peel the potatoes and we gotta study our French.
Yeah.
I mean, even though this is what's going on around me, I guess that's what we'll do. We'll carry on and do what we do. And it's just, I don't know, it cracks me up and it inspires me. It's so teenager. I love teenagers. I really do.
Yes, you do. You do. And again, your book is an amazing read for them. So tell teenagers and tell the young adults and tell the parents and the teachers who might be watching and listening too, why it is that they should grab a copy of Fine.
Because it's amazing, for starters. No, it is. I think you should grab a copy of it because I think there's a little something in it for everyone. I think you can relate to it as a teenager or as an adult, depending on, your experiences in life. I think we all can understand what it's like to pretend like we're okay when in reality we're not. And we don't want to tell everybody because we don't know how they're going to respond or how they're going to treat us. We don't want to be seen as weak or incapable. We don't want to, spill our guts to people who aren't going to take care with them. And, we all struggle with how authentic to be and how much to share with the people in our lives. And I think everybody can relate to that, no matter what age you are. But I think teenagers in particular might get a kick out of, reading just, it's all out there. It's all out there on the page. And, we're not trying to pretend that things are okay. It's just putting it all out there, not trying to shine it up and say, okay, well, now that I've looked at this for 10, 20 years and I've, rounded off the edges and made it look pristine. No, this is what it looks like today. And there's value in what it looks like today because that's where we are. I always joke about pregnancy. It's a very different story telling, about the birth of your child when it actually happens versus 10 years later, right? Because when it actually happens, it's like a horror story. Like, that was insane. Why would I do that again? But then, time passes and you don't see all the bad. You see all the beauty and the wonder and the magic of the moment. And so it looks very different down the road. And I think, for any teenager, I personally think that, being able to look at a moment the way it actually is with the things you would actually say is just really validating and it feels good. It just feels good.
It absolutely does. That's great advice. AmyLea, can you tell people where they can go to find out more about you, to find the book, find your social media?
Absolutely. You can find out more about me on my website, which is AmyLeaMurphy.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. I love being on Instagram. It's my new favorite. And also you can go get your copy of Fine on Amazon. And please do.
and there it is. There it is. And there is an ebook. But I have to say, this is one of those books where you really want to have the hard copy too, just because of how beautiful it is and everything.
And it's so fun to read. It's so, I love it. I love how it came out. I'm so proud of it.
You should be. You should be very proud. This is a beautiful debut YA novel called Fine. And it really, it has a little bit of mystery. It has that angst. It has that permission to be authentic. It has that and so much more. So thank you so much for writing it.
Thank you so much. I've loved being here.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being with us here today on the Books That Make You show. And you can find out more about us on our website. That's booksthatmakeyou.com. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram. And we've got a newsletter where you can subscribe and find out news about books and authors and all the fun stuff that you enjoy about books. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.